Alright, so today's video we're going to take a look at the brand new gimbal from Zhiyun. This is the Weebill 3E, otherwise known as the Cinepeer. This is kind of going back to simplicity for Zhiyun. They wanted to take what they already have in like the Weebill 3S, simplify it, and make it so it's just kind of a gimbal and not all the extra bells and whistles, because a lot of times people don't even use all the extra bells and whistles to begin with. So first off, let's take a look at what this actually is, open it up, see what comes with the kit, and then we'll go through some of the features, and then we'll also go through and show some real world tests of the gimbal to see how good it actually is, because that's ultimately what makes or breaks a gimbal. Is it smooth and does it work? So let's get this thing all opened up and see what comes inside. Alright, so just like the older versions, this thing is going to come more of a styrofoam case. It's not really a case, but you can definitely store it in here. I guess if you got creative and maybe taped it up in a certain way, you could use it as a case. But let's just see what's inside when you open it up. Alright, so when you take off the lid, you're going to see that it comes with the gimbal, it comes with a little tripod, it comes with the attachment plate, and it comes with a bunch of cables here, it looks like. So it's a pretty simplified version. This one does not come with the wrist mount, the undersling mode handle, or kind of a lot of the other stuff that a lot of times you don't even use anyway. So let's get this thing all pulled out here and get it all set up. Now this is just kind of a message for Zhiyun. I do kind of wish you guys were to put some kind of hinge on here and maybe just a clip so that you could still use this as a case. I feel like we've been saying that for a long time. And I get it's not meant to be a case. It's supposed to be like how it comes in a box, but it would be kind of convenient, especially since you're already getting it. So here you're going to have your tripod screw in with a 1/4-20, and on the bottom you have your 1/4-20. It looks like you do have a couple other 1/4-20 mounts on the bottom there. And that might be for if you're using like a tripod that has like a plate with 2 screw holes. You can maybe use it for that, or it might just be for different attachments where if you do want to purchase like the wrist mount, maybe you can get something with that. But otherwise, you're just going to screw this thing in here. And you don't have to use the tripod bottom, by the way. You can still use this gimbal without the bottom. But if you want to set this thing down on a table, I would recommend just using it anyways. So it depends on how compact you want to be. So pretty much every single thing about this gimbal is going to be very, very similar to the Weebill 3S, which is this guy right here. So now the big difference between the Weebill 3E and the Weebill 3S is this guy has the kind of quick release attachment on the bottom of the tripod. It has the underslung handle. It has the wrist support. It has the built-in fill light on the front. It has an integrated microphone. And then it also has like the follow focus image transmission mount. So this thing has a lot of features that you might use, but if you just want a regular kind of gimbal that just works as a gimbal and doesn't have all the extra bells and whistles, that's what this one's for. And you're going to save a little bit of money because of that. So other than that, this thing has all the same algorithms for the motors, and it can still hold the same payload at 6.6 pounds, which is quite a bit. In fact, I have used my Sony a7S III with my Sigma 2470, and if you guys know anything about the Sigma 2470, that thing is a very heavy lens, and it still worked fine on this and on the 3S. So, alright, so let's get a camera mounted on this thing and just turn it on and kind of see some of the features here. So first off, I always use on my gimbals, I use these Fallcam quick release F38 plates. This is the plate from the other gimbal. It's going to be the same one, so I'm just going to reuse the same thing. On the front here, you'll see that it does have a safety catch, so you can't actually like drop your gimbal if you forget to tighten it down. That is a huge thing to have, so you just have to push a button, then it slides out. So I actually mount my quick release mounts on the plate to begin with, and then I put that on there. So that way, when I'm using my cameras, it doesn't take much, and all I have to do is just slap it on there, and it clips right in. It makes it really convenient to go from gimbal to handheld without having to like unscrew your camera. So I would highly recommend getting like a quick release plate if you haven't. All right, so first off, we're just going to set it up. We're going to throw that in the quick release. So as far as balancing this gimbal, this thing's actually really simple to balance. What I usually do is I lock all of the axes first. I unlock the top one, and you can see right now it's swinging backwards. So all I'm going to do is just move that thing forward until it basically stops moving. And now it is good to open like your screen or use it like you're going to use your camera, because that will change the balance. So right there, we're pretty close. I'm just going to move it forward just a smudge. Okay, so we're good there. Then I'm going to lock that axis, go back to the back one here. And now you can see the camera's tipping to the right. So all we're going to do is move it back that way until it balances. Looks like that's good there. Lock that back down and lock the axis. And then what you want to do is unlock this guy right here. And then you're going to hold it sideways, and you can see how it tips there. So that means we want to move it forward just a tiny bit. until it stops moving. Now this doesn't have to be perfect. You can get pretty close because the motors are strong enough on this gimbal to compensate for any slight off balance. But if you can, just get it balanced to begin with. So there it stopped moving. So now I'm going to lock that third one again. I come back to the fourth one, and that's this one on the front. So you're going to want to unlock this guy here, point it up at the ceiling, and you want it to not fall. So you're going to unlock this guy and slide this up until it stays pointing up. So there, we got it pointing up. We can tighten that one back down. And now you have your gimbal hopefully balanced. If it does go back forward again, we can adjust that one more time. Okay, so now we're good. So now you have your gimbal balanced. You can turn this thing on. Make sure before you turn it on, you unlock all of the different axes so you don't lock up your motor. So as far as the buttons that are on this gimbal, you have your power button, you have your menu button, you have your scroll dial. On this side, you have your mode button, your record button, which works through Bluetooth on certain cameras, and then you have your joystick. On the back, you have your trigger, which is customizable. You can actually set this up to be what you want it to be, and then you have your roll dial as well. Now, if you set this thing up custom-wise, you could change this to like control your ISO or things like that, which is really convenient on a camera like this if you have the Bluetooth capability. There is a camera compatibility list on their website, so if you guys do need to check that out, go check out Zhiyun's website. You can see which cameras work with this, but basically you can control your camera from your joystick instead of having to go up in your menu screen, which is super nice. So after you get your gimbal all balanced, the thing I would do is go into your menu settings and go down to motor. You can scroll it to motor, and then you can hit auto. So what you want to do is put this back down on a flat surface that's level, and then hit auto, and it's going to shake around and adjust itself. And if anything needs weight in different spots, it's going to apply more of the weight to like your roll or your act tilt. So let's let that finish up here. Okay, when you're done, you'll get a check mark that says okay. You can just go back, and then you can go back to your main menu. Now your gimbal has been calibrated to the setup that you have. So now if you are using zoom lenses, what I would probably recommend is zooming it out about halfway, so that way any weight balance shift is going to be compensated for it. So now you're good to go. This thing is all set up, and it is going to be really easy to use. Now, like when I said they're going back to simplicity, what I meant by that is they got rid of the like follow focus stuff. They got rid of all the image transmission stuff, the microphone, the fill lights. This is just a basic gimbal, but it's a really good basic gimbal. The motors are really strong. You have plenty of clearance here. It's going to be similar to like all the other Zhiyun ones that they've had in the past, only this one's going to be just simplified. So if you guys are familiar with things like the Crane M3S, this is a good for like a smaller camera, like the ZV-1 or even like the ZV-E10. But this one's going to be good for like the ZV-E10 or full frame cameras. It's going to hold a lot more weight, and it's going to be a little bit more balanced. But mainly you also have a lot more clearance, because if you look here, there wasn't a lot of clearance on these cameras. So if you did have to push back the gimbal, you didn't have a lot of room. So these are the Crane 3Ms. This is kind of the original new versions of these gimbals. But I would say this is most comparable to me to something almost like the Weebill 3S, which was just always been my workhorse because this gimbal just always seems to work. I love this one. I liked having that top handle sometimes, but the thing is this just didn't pack down well. Now the thing with this one is that this packed down in its square form is like fits within an A4 sheet of paper. So you're going to have an easy time putting that in your backpack, which is going to be a lot easier than something like that 3S, because that always had that weird shape because of that top handle. So some of the modes that this gimbal is going to have is going to be like your pan follow. That is just going to be panning right to left. It's not going to allow it to go up or down on a tilt. Then if you hit the next button, it's going to go to lock mode. Now lock mode basically means whatever you aim it at, it's going to stay there. So if I'm turning my wrist or if I'm turning in circles, that camera is pointed directly at that object. So this is really good for like reveal shots. So if you're like tucked behind an object, you can kind of come out of it, and it's going to stay locked, positioned on that spot, even if you accidentally roll your wrist or something like that. So the third mode is going to be your follow. So this is going to be basically wherever you aim it is where it's going to go. So it will tilt up and down. It will go right and left. I use this one a lot for if you're kind of coming up to stuff where you want to tilt upwards. So I use follow quite a bit as well. So if you want to use this gimbal in a selfie mode, all you have to do is tap this trigger 3 times. and then the camera's going to turn back around with you. So now you can walk around with it in selfie mode, and you're going to get really stable footage instead of that handheld look that you use with like either holding it by a camera or a tripod or something. You can do 3 to go back. And then if you double tap that trigger, that's going to recenter your gimbal. So if you have your, let's just say you have it panned way up or something like that, if you hit that double trigger, it's going to reset it back to its horizon. Now, if you go into your mode setting, if you double tap it, you're going to bring up POV. Now, the big difference between POV and follow mode is that POV allows the roll axis to go with the gimbal. The other one still kept it centered and horizon. But this one, if you really want that kind of POV mode, you can go into that, and then you can do the roll, you can do the follow. It's just going to turn wherever you put the gimbal, and I really like that mode as well. You can get some pretty creative shots with that as well. So if you do a lot of those like cool car videos with that speed ramp into something and speed ramp out, and so that's going to be what you're going to use that mode mostly for. So let's go back to the mode menu again. So now if we put it back to pan follow, if you hit it twice, you're going to bring up POV, but then if you hit it twice again, you're going to bring up vortex. So now vortex is going to basically aim straight up at the sky, and then when you go into your roll, you can roll this, and it's going to turn the gimbal, and it's going to give you that kind of cool spinny, world spinning look. It's a pretty cool effect. I feel like that's something that I used every now and then, but I just don't use it a lot. So then if you want to go back to the regular settings, you're just going to hit the mode button. That's going to bring it back to pan follow. So on this gimbal, if you loosen up the roll axis one on the back here, you can actually slide it all the way off. There is a button you have to hold to push down to take it off. But now if you can see on the bottom here, there's one little thing right here. And what this does is allows you to put that back on the gimbal so you can run it in vertical mode. So after you slide this back on here, you're going to want to use this front one here to tighten it back down. If you do notice that if you get to the part where it hits the plate, all you have to do is just lift it back out, and you can spin it, and it'll kind of move around that. So now you have the thing completely balanced. You can do all the vertical content you want. This is an awesome feature to be able to have the ability to switch from horizontal to vertical video in like such a quick time nonetheless. Before, you always have to get like an L bracket or do something goofy with the gimbal or put it in a weird mode, and it was always just a disaster before. So now they've managed to make all these cool brackets that are just changeable, and it's a breeze to switch back. So let's switch back real quick and just show you how quick that is. Let me put it back to sleep. So like I said, you loosen the front of that here, slide it off, pull the trigger, then you can put this thing right back on this way, and now you're back to horizontal. It's that quick and simple to do that. So on the fly, you can easily just switch back to that, which is really sweet. All right, so let's go take this thing outside. Let's go shoot a little sequence. We'll do our little walking test and the infamous running test, since you guys always want to see running tests. But let's go check that out. All right, since no gimbal test is complete without doing a walking stabilization test, let's just walk with this thing, see how good it looks. So you can use active stabilization on this camera, which can be pretty stable, but it definitely does not match the capabilities of what a gimbal can do for stabilization. As you can see, it's still pretty smooth. You can turn with it. What I really like about this gimbal, though, is you just put the camera on there, turn it on, and that's it. It works. It's great. There's no extra features. There's no wrist guards. It's as simple as you can get in a gimbal. So all right, so I don't know why we always do this test, but let's do the running test. This is just going to showcase like the ultimate stabilization that this gimbal can do, because running is going to be very jarring on the camera. So let's just get going and do it. So not that you're going to do that a lot, but so the most you're probably going to do with running is like following someone else. Like maybe you're doing a scene where you're running through the woods and you're following someone while they're running. That might be one of the only times that you use it while you're actually running. But it's a test that everyone wants to see. I don't know why, but there you go. All right, so I'll do one more test. I'm just going to go up to the sidewalk here by the road. And I'm just going to kind of run and try to follow a car. That might be more realistic of what you run with a gimbal before. All right, so I was really happy with how good this gimbal actually functioned. The only thing I will say is that right out of the box, the deadpan's a little touchy, so you can actually go into the menu and change that. Now, the deadpan is how much you have to turn it before it actually turns. Sometimes when you're just moving and you're just filming, you might just kind of accidentally twitch your wrist a little bit, and you don't want the camera to like jet to the side. So you can adjust your deadpan. You can also adjust like the smoothness of the gimbal, the speed of the gimbal. There's a lot of other functions you can go into the menu and do. I'm not going to go into it with this video. But the deadpan on default is a little touchy, so all you have to do is go into the menu, go down to deadpan, and then you can adjust the deadpan so that you can turn it a lot more before it turns. But just change the number to a setting where it just kind of works the way you want it to work. That's all I can really explain. I wouldn't give you a number because that's for me. That might be different for you. But yeah, overall, super happy with how good this gimbal functioned. I thought it controlled very easily. For someone who's never picked up a gimbal before, this is a great option for like a first gimbal. And it's going to let you grow into another camera. So if you do heavier setups, heavier lenses, it's still going to shoot those really easily. And you're going to have a lot of room to grow into a gimbal. Versus some of the other smaller ones, once you get a bigger camera and bigger lens, those kind of become a shelf piece because they just don't hold those bigger cameras. So if you guys want to check this thing out, I have the links down in the description. There is a 10% off code down there as well, so if you want to use that code. And I believe there's also going to be a 10% off sale on Amazon through like July 7th. So I think you can maybe still use that as well as the code, so it might bring it down to like $199. This thing starts at $249 otherwise. So if you guys have any other questions about this gimbal, leave me a comment down below. I'll try to answer it. If you guys wouldn't mind subscribing to the channel, follow along to all the other Sony stuff and gimbals and microphones, you name it. And as always, guys, we'll catch you on the next one. Later.